Class of 2015, if you are watching this screencast, it's because you want to know more about how to begin your argument essay. So here we go. The introduction is very important. If you haven't already started your introduction, then this is going to be crucial. If you have already started or at least finished a draft of your introduction, then you still may want to pay attention because this will give you some key things to think about. So this is what the paper's introduction should do. You need to establish your voice and your credibility as a writer to your audience. So in other words, this is your ethos. Okay. Keep in mind you're going to be writing to a group of adults who reads Time magazine, so you have to appear credible to them. So you have to kind of know what you're talking about. Introductions also engage the audience with something interesting or thought-provoking. We'll get more into that in a little bit. Introductions also provide a little bit of background information on the topic you are writing about, but not too much because you want to save some details and save some evidence for later. And then, of course, introductions state your main argument or your thesis, with supporting ideas also thrown in there for good measure, while also acknowledging opposing views. That's the purpose of introductions. Okay? So remember, you are just getting the ball rolling, but once you get that ball rolling, you don't want to fall into the hole. So got to keep momentum. All right, so what can I do? That may be what you're asking yourself right now. Well, the good news is you can do a lot. There are no rules about what the exact right introduction does. You can tell a story, either a personal story based on something that happened to you or based on something you read about that happened to someone else. You can ask a provocative question. The special note here, though, asking questions to start papers is something that you've been doing for a long time. So for an AP paper, the question you ask better be a really interesting question. You can also define key terms. In this case, we're talking about the American dream, so take some time to define the American dream in your own words. Or you might want to quote someone famous and or historic, or both, but it better be someone who matters to your argument. Don't just pick a random person like Kim Kardashian just because she's funny and you like her. But who really likes her anymore? All right, so this is how to begin, kind of in a nutshell, right? Story, question, definition, or quote, or a combination of any of these. Right? But these are some nice, engaging, and compelling ways to begin your essay. So I want to go through a few examples that all take on this theme of the American dream. So these are all possible examples of how to start your paper. Obviously, you're not going to copy these. We'll go through these 4 examples one by one. You can tell a story. Okay, so I would suggest that you actually pause your computer and read this to yourself because I'm not going to read it out loud, and then we're going to move on. Okay, if you pause and come back, just to point out a few things here. Notice this is a story about someone else. This is not a personal experience, so this is something that you're learning in history class currently. And you take about 3 or 4 sentences to tell the story of the Puritans. Nice embedded quote, City on a Hill from John Winthrop, if you've read that in history class. Just kind of adds a little punch to the opening. And then it takes a little bit of time in the second paragraph to set up the background of the debate about the American dream before getting to their thesis. That says we still have a dream, one that is always looking forward to a hopeful future and is sure to survive current challenges. So this is defending the American dream. Does all the things we asked it to do in 2 pretty tight paragraphs. Next example. Asking a question. Again, pause your computer just so you can read it before I move on. So you're back from pausing. Just to clarify here, these are 2 separate paragraphs. This one is 2 questions. That's all it is, and then it jumps into a longer paragraph. So you can do that. Remember, we're trying to break away from the 5-paragraph template. But if you're going to ask a question, remember, it has to be a good one. Okay? So is the American dream dead? Was it ever truly alive? Nice juxtaposition there, a contrast between 2 pretty provocative questions. And then it gets down, sets up the terms of the debate again, gives some background on this ongoing debate about the American dream, but then it actually comes down to define it, and here's the argument. The dream we speak of is actually a multitude of individual dreams, all coalescing or joining together into a philosophy of innovation and optimism. If there is a dream, it should be this: the ideal, the promise of an opportunity, security, and comfort. Okay, so they are making an argument after asking some pretty interesting questions. Next example. Define key terms. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because this is the one that you actually saw in the warm-ups during Monday's class, but I'll stop and pause here just for a second so you can read it. So as you can see, the first paragraph takes time to define the American dream in James Truslow Adams's term, and then the second paragraph actually does a nice little compare and contrast, taking that definition and actually kind of deconstructing it and saying what's wrong with it before finally getting to an argument. It is clear in this country's unreformed, the last sentence, a new American dream needs to be defined, one that emphasizes equality and diversity and does away with notions of innate capability that have held us back for too long. Innate, of course, being paraphrased from Adams's quote. Okay, good example here. Final one. Use a quote. Now this may seem easy because you've started papers with quotes before. You did that last year, a lot of you in your Macbeth essays. But look how nicely this quote is embedded into the first line. In its birth, this nation was founded on Jefferson's ideals of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Of course, that quote coming from the Declaration of Independence. Okay, again, you're assuming a lot about your audience who reads Time magazine that they're going to recognize that quote, so you may not need to say that. Okay, take a few more minutes to read this and analyze it a bit before I pick back up. So then the real argument comes at the start of the second paragraph. Despite what many may now think, the American dream, as it is defined in the parameters of Jefferson's vision, is still alive and well. We still, as a nation, covet and value freedom, opportunity, and the hope for something better. And based on our history, it does not seem that any new challenge can shake that. So a clear argument that the American dream is still alive and still an inspiration. You have support, right? Hopefully this helps and that you don't feel like you're falling backward and no one's there to catch you anymore. Okay, so again, once again, the introduction is supposed to do these things. Establish your credible voice. Engage the audience with something interesting. Provide a little bit of background information about the topic, but not too much. And then state your main argument or thesis before you go on to your body paragraphs. Okay, story, question, definition, quote. Those are the easiest ways to begin, but I will say not the only ways to begin. Now, get started. Yeah, he's really cute.